There we go.
Hey, how are you?
I'm doing well, thank you. How are you?
I'm very well. Thanks so much for doing this. I'm very excited.
Absolutely. Yeah, thank
Cool.
you.
No problem. So, you have kind of been like globetrotting, doing all kinds of touring, Accept, and then you've been doing your touring with Gibbs, Hoekstra Gibbs. Are you going back on tour with Accept?
Yeah, that's coming up next. Wednesday night, I fly to Spain and start up doing the Euro festival season with them there.
Oh,
So,
wow. That's really
yeah.
amazing. You're a super busy guy. Are you home for just like a couple of days?
This break, I'm not sure exactly how long it was between the UK and I actually had to go to Vegas to do a gig the next day, which is
Oh,
kind
is
of
that the
crazy.
Rock of Ages?
Yeah, I got back from the UK and then flew to Vegas for a day to do that and then back. And so yeah, I think roughly a week or something like that. And now gonna head over to Europe. And this initial stint is kind of broken up. So there's a gap between, so I think I'm only gonna be there like 11 days or something like that. And then there's another like maybe 8, 9 days at home, and then we go back for a longer stint, is the way
Oh,
it works.
cool. And this is the first time you played with Accept?
No, I did South
No?
America or Latin America technically earlier this year.
Oh,
So
okay.
that
Cool.
was my maiden voyage, so to speak. So
Yeah.
this is just trying to make sure I don't have the sophomore jinx.
Yeah, right. No doubt. So how have you liked being on tour with Accept? How's that been? Has it just like a massive rush doing all those different places?
Yeah, I mean, it was great to get back down to Latin America, South America. I hadn't been down there since 2019
Wow.
with Whitesnake. So, they have incredible fans on there, very passionate and super into it. So, it was great to get down there, especially with like such, energetic music, like metal essentially,
Yeah.
rocking out really hard. So, I had a good time doing that, and this should be just sort of that, but European fans and mega audiences, because the festivals, those kind of
Yeah.
have huge crowds that you get to do it for. So that should be a lot of fun.
It looks like a freaking blast. So last year was the first year that I actually got to go see Trans Siberian Orchestra. And that kind of like it actually kind of changed my life. I've always been like a very big Christmas fan and a metal fan, and I always loved Savatage. But that was like the most Christmas joy. I mean, I was so full of the Christmas spirit and joy after that. That was like such a fun, massive blast. That must be great playing with them.
Yeah, I mean, that's really I've been on board since 2010, and
Yep.
it's really been a fantastic gig over the years to
Yeah.
have. Just to the production itself is incredible, and
It's so amazing how much goes into that.
yeah, and
It's mind blowing, really.
the people in the band are, obviously we have a special bond because we spend 2 months together every year on a bus, essentially. So, we've got, a good friendship on our side with the band and everything
Hmm.
like that. So, yeah, that's always great to be a part of. It's just a great pool of talent and
Yeah.
great organization all the way from the top, just all the charitable work that they do, from the O'Neill family, everything
Hmm.
that, Paul's vision with that and management, and, all the way to, with the crew is like an all-star team. We get
Oh
like all
yeah.
the people that want to have a great gig come November, December when most bands
Yeah.
aren't working. So we've just got this dynamite, unbelievable crew that's out with us every November, December as well. So it's great to be a part of.
Yeah, and it was, yeah, like I said, it blew my mind. I was really excited. One of my friend got a free ticket. I don't know if you may or may not know her, but Jenny Camerer, she does art for Chris Caffrey. But
Yeah.
so she was like, I don't have anyone to go with, and I was like, I will go. So it was amazing. But I'm really impressed with your resume. I mean, you've played with Whitesnake, Night Ranger, Foreigner, Cher. I mean, plus you were in Rock of Ages, which I kind of love that. Even the movie is like hilarious, and I love it. I mean, I love the whole like 80s rock metal theme thing. It's like it's just a lot of good fun, and it reminds me of being a teenager too. So
Yeah. Well, thank you. I mean, I did just, as the years went by, just kind of try to keep multiple gigs going and kind of see where life leads you. Just work hard at like all the
Yeah.
gigs and see where it all just takes you, you know. That's the interesting part about it, is that, you know, there's always like twists and turns that you don't expect. And sometimes you end up doing things you don't expect, like, you know, Broadway's Rock of Ages, you know,
Right.
that's a classic example right there. Because when I was a kid, there was no way I was sitting there with my guitar going, someday I'm going to be on Broadway, you know. But it ended up being a gig that really changed my life in a lot of ways for the
Oh,
better.
that's awesome.
And really, you know, same with Cher. I mean, that's like not, that wasn't necessarily something I pictured as a kid, but having the opportunity to play with her, and that's something
She's
that
such an
kind
icon.
of out of left field. And you go, wow, well, you know, when you're an adult, you realize, you recognize the cool factor in it.
Yeah, absolutely. And so as a musician, when you were a kid, was it like something that you played instruments and you were like, this is what I want to do? Did it come later to you that that's something you really wanted to do for your life?
I mean, I started on cello at a really young age, like maybe even 3.
Oh,
And
wow. That's
my
a big
parents,
instrument for a small
I,
kid.
yeah, my parents are classical musicians. I mean, I think it was
Right,
like
I saw
probably
that.
sides of violin, and then piano. And then I wanted to make the switch to guitar, to play rock about 11 years old, something like that. And so um, that's when I made the switch. And yeah, I mean, I just kind of like did a whole lot of that from the jump, right away. As soon as I learned like my first rock songs, then I just found myself doing a whole lot of that. So
Yeah. Who are you mostly influenced by? Like, what bands do you like? And do you still like the same bands you liked when you were a kid? You know, if you had a CD player in your car, because I know a lot of people don't have that anymore, who would be in your CD deck? Like, who do you love?
I mean, it's a really long list of things that influenced me, like starting out very much heavy metal, like, you know, AC/DC, Black Sabbath, Ozzy, Iron Maiden, Scorpions.
Right.
And then, you know, you kind of transition into getting into lighter bands that were more melodic, like, you know, Journey, Foreigner, Boston, um, more proggy bands to a degree, you know, with Rush and
Oh,
Yes,
yeah, I love them.
Queensryche. I kind of throw into that category with what they were releasing, at least at that time. And I'd say, you know, we had a big classic rock scene in Chicago, so 70s stuff, Zeppelin, Pink Floyd,
Yeah.
even going back to like Hendrix and you know, all that stuff I liked as a kid. And of course, I grew up in the guitar album era, so all that instrumental guitar stuff that was coming out, Yngwie Malmsteen and Steve Vai,
Right,
Joe
right. Yeah.
Satriani, Steve Morse, all, you know, all that stuff. And over the years, it's kind of just been like whatever kind of music I needed to work on for whatever types of gigs I was doing, and that tends to be what I get influenced by. I don't do a lot of like free listening.
Yeah, you
I
probably
don't.
don't have a whole lot of extra time for that anyhow.
I mean, the time that I do have is usually escaping music, because I spend music, like, you know, the bulk of my day playing music and working on
Right,
music. But when the day is over, I usually try to have something like not music related that just kind of clears my head a little bit.
right,
Um,
right.
so yeah, it's not my forte to sit down and say like, let's check out this band and let's check out this band, and I'm not really
Yeah.
much in that scene.
So since you've been playing so long, do you still get butterflies? Is it still a thrill for you? Do you still love to play? Like, is it still like almost like the first time you played? Like, what kind of emotions do you feel before you go
Yeah, I mean, it's all those things at once, because I definitely am an anxious person. So I
play?
like anxiety, but that also translates into like a lot of adrenaline and like kind of a rush that, you know, you in a way ride a real high off of too. So
Absolutely.
it's kind of all those things at once,
Yeah.
would be the best way to describe it. So it's, you know, the anxiety thing I wish was not present, but like the anxiousness and the nervousness, but you know, it usually is. So
Yeah.
it's, you know, it's just part of it.
I can relate to that. I get anxiety before I do things like this and things of that nature. But so is there anything that happens like when you're on the road? Like what's the oddest or weirdest or best thing that's happened to you, like touring? If there's one thing.
I mean, I would say just kind of collectively all of it, because I think where I grew up, my parents being classical musicians, and we did not have a lot of money, to say the least. And I grew up in kind of a blue collar neighborhood in the suburbs of Chicago. So I think, it's to get to have all the opportunities I've had, that's not easy coming from a place like that. It's not like you're growing up in LA or New York
Right.
or something like that at the time and having the opportunity to make those connections. So I'd say just the fact that I've been able to make a living. I mean, ultimately, my goal was to be a pro guitarist more than like rock star or anything like
Mm-hmm.
that. Anything that's come along in those regards that has any um elements of that has been like just a bonus as far as I'm concerned, because the goal was to set out with my guitar and be like, well, this is what I want to do. I want to play guitar for a living, and so we'll figure it out from
Right.
there.
Right. I mean, you kind of already are though, playing your guitar for a living. So, I
Well,
mean,
not
that's
kind of, I am. Yeah.
yeah, right. I mean, you are.
But
So, yeah. And like on such
for a
a
long
massive
time.
national level too. So,
Yeah, I mean, but I guess my point is that's tends to be like what I would say is the best part about it all, is that I've made it this far.
yeah.
So, yeah.
Well, I think also sometimes when people don't come from like a family that has a lot of money, you tend to work harder because things aren't necessarily just handed to you. So I mean, I'm sure that you work very, very hard at what you do and you work hard to be as good as you are. So yeah, just my opinion because I think you're pretty awesome. So but
Thank
but
you.
so what else did I want to ask you? Oh, I saw it on your website that you do your own solo projects. We have Joe Hoekstra 13. You have like a bunch of solo albums. I didn't even know that. How's that going? When do you find time to do that?
Yeah, I mean, initially I released like 3 instrumental albums back in the early 2000s. That sounded very much like guitarist solo albums. 2 of them were kind of like rock fusion,
Yeah.
and one was fingerstyle acoustics, because I had written a bunch of stuff just kind of hanging out playing acoustic guitar, and I thought, well, I guess I had to like lay this down. I didn't really intend to promote it or anything like that, but I just
Mm-hmm.
kind of put that out into the world so it was documented. And then as I became more well known in the hard rock scene, joining Night Ranger and having Rock of Ages and Trans Siberian Orchestra and Whitesnake, and people were like, "Hey, how come your solo albums don't sound anything like hard rock? It's like all this different stuff." So that was the concept or behind putting out Joel Hoekstra's 13 albums, was that I would put out albums of my own that were just kind of like straight ahead rock that influenced me, to start guitar. So that type of style, what
Yeah.
got me into it. So it's very song oriented, and it's kind of sounds like a band, but the hitch being is that I do all the writing. So I write all the riffs and the
Wow.
lyrics and the vocal melodies and everything. So that kind of allows me one creative outlet where I get to be the boss, like, and kind of the dictator a little bit. So
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's amazing. That's so cool. So let me ask you this question. So what has music taught you, or what has playing guitar in many, many bands taught you? Like what has music given you?
um I mean, I think the main thing is to outwork everybody else, like to succeed at it. You basically have to do the things that most people would not, to get ahead of other people. So most of the gigs I have, you could trace back to some amount of work I put in for so little money. You'd be like, are you out of your
Oh,
mind? Why would you ever
yeah.
do it? And then it turns into something. So, work creates work. So if you just stay busy and you work all the time. And the other thing being is that I'd say pretty much any scenario you're ever in with music, there's always going to be some bright points and some things that are great about it, and there's going to be some things that maybe aren't so great. So the key is to keep your eye on the things that are great, and like focus on those to kind of keep yourself sane in doing so.
All
um,
right.
yeah,
Are
so
there any
there's
sorry, go
always going
ahead.
to be an upside and a downside.
Oh yeah, I would think so. Are there any bands that you're like, I know that you're in so many different bands. Like, is there one that you like more than the other? Or you just want to go out and play and do your thing and bring your music to the masses?
No, I mean, essentially just like, look at myself like a pro guitarist who's doing like the different gigs, not only number one to like make a living properly, but like number two to like improve on a regular basis, right? So I don't want to be one of those guitarists that goes out and tours for a couple of months and then takes 3 months off and barely touches his guitar and stuff like
Mhm.
that. It's not really um in my genetic code to do so. And like, I think the more time you spend with it, the better you get at it. So it makes common
Right.
sense to think that, hey, I should be doing a lot of this.
Do you have trouble like when you do have downtime, do you have trouble like actually like essentially not doing something? Like do you feel like you're usually compelled to do more?
Yeah. I mean, I do try to have something like productive every single day.
Yeah.
That is really hard for me to go to bed at like having a day where I did absolutely nothing to move forward. So usually there's something in there. And that, so, occasionally I'll take a day off a guitar. It happens, but there's usually other stuff that happens in that day that was like, I'll take care of business or things
Right,
like,
right.
or social media or whatever, something that's like productive for the music career overall.
Yeah. So what do you love most about playing guitar? Is there one thing? Is it many things?
Um, I guess that's kind of hard to pinpoint. I mean, I really don't know what the answer to that is. I mean,
Okay.
it's just kind of something that when I started when I was a kid, that just kind of felt right, and it felt like it was what I was supposed to do. So I just kind of have kept at it, and it's yielded a lot of results through working hard. So I guess at that point in time, when you kind of realize that that's the secret and that's all it really is, you
Mhm.
want to work harder and harder to try to create that.
So do you think that's what drives you to want to play all the time is to, like you said, to be like this mass, I don't even know what the right word is, like because you're such a phenomenal guitarist and you have such a presence, it's just pretty amazing actually.
Well, thanks. I mean, I think that, yeah, like I said, it comes down to hard work in the end. So yeah, that just understanding that will yield positive results. It's a very simple formula. It's just like anything else in life. The more you do it,
Right.
the better you get at it. So
Well, that's
um,
true too.
I mean, I tend to lean towards the real world application still because, I'm old school. So I still love like, getting out and playing live and recording like, albums or whatever you want to call them these
Yeah,
days,
right.
right? Or, I'm not as heavily in like, there's people that intently like create content online, like reels and things like that.
Hmm.
Not as driven in that. I like definitely have my toes in the water. I have a lot of like collab videos I did, especially during COVID, that have a lot of views, and the recording projects I'm a part of and bands I'm a part of, the videos and things like that. So, I'm out there in the digital domain, like at least enough, that I'm
Yeah.
not like, a total dinosaur, but definitely partial dinosaur in that I still really enjoy getting out and touring and making records and kind of, what it used to be.
Right. Well, I enjoy going out to see live music still and still buying, an album or a CD at the show, the shirt, whatever. Like I like the whole experience. So, that hasn't, I mean, that's been this, I've been like that since I was probably a preteen. I've always loved the live music experience, to see your favorite bands, hear their music live. The recordings are great, but there's something about a live show. So,
Mhm.
the vibe and everything's just pretty amazing. So if you had to give advice to younger people wanting to be musicians, wanting to do what you do, what would be your best advice? What would you say to them?
Yeah, I mean, I pretty much already said it, but to just outwork
Just work
everybody.
hard.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people get into music because they think that'll help me avoid having to like actually work in life, and then
Yeah.
the sad reality is that when you get into music, you actually realize like, oh, I actually have to work way harder at this than I would
Yeah.
have had to work if I took a normal job. So,
Yeah. But I
uh,
think it's probably more fun.
yeah, oh, absolutely. I mean, it's a roller coaster. There's lots of like, mega highs and the like fantastic moments, and there's moments that are like, that suddenly the downtime happens and you're like, yikes, what's up, so it's a lot of this as opposed to most
Yeah.
people kind
Yeah.
of just
A lot of emotions.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, well, I super appreciate your time, from the bottom of my heart. It's very, very excited to meet you. And I hope that you have a wonderful tour. And I hope to see you again in December with TSO. So thank you so
Awesome.
much.
Yep. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Okay, have a good night.
Have a good one. Okay.
Thanks. Bye.